Ho! It's Sunday night. I'm Chet. This is Robin from Sea Lake Journeys, and we're here to talk to you about you guessed it, the poop cruise.
Yes, we're going to talk about the poop cruise. So that was a Netflix series, a Netflix documentary.
Yeah.
A Netflix documentary.
Yeah, it should have been a series because I don't think they told the whole story.
I think they could have made it longer. It was an hour? Was it an hour?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
An hour. I think it could have easily been a 2-hour show.
I think it should have been at least 2 hours because I think there's a whole lot of story they did not tell that probably should have been told.
Yeah, so tonight we want to hear your comments about the poop cruise.
Yeah, did you watch it? It was on Netflix. If you didn't watch it, get on over there and check it out. What the poop cruise was, in case you didn't know.
So we're going to be giving you our review of the poop cruise.
Yeah.
Documentary.
In case you didn't know what it was, it's the Carnival Triumph back in 2013, February 2013, leaving from Galveston on a 4-day cruise to Cozumel. So they was just going to go down there 2 sea days, Cozumel for a day, 1 day back to Galveston. Well, the first 3 days went flawlessly, and then day 4 came.
I guess day 4 was when it all hit the fan.
The poop.
So, when we were watching the documentary, right, they start off telling you, that it's, like Chet said, it's a 4-day cruise. I thought, first of all, it happened in 2013. Is that when it was?
Yep.
It doesn't seem that long ago to me.
No, me neither, because I remember when it happened.
I know. To me, it just seems like a few years ago.
Yep.
And then watching the documentary, we'll get into some of our comments and some of our commentary, I guess, a little bit later. But I felt like cruising has changed a lot.
I know. It feels like a million years ago.
It does.
But yet, it seems like yesterday, too. I don't
know.
At
the same time, it seems like yesterday. Yep. So we're going to say hello to everybody. We're not going to go through the chat and just say hello to everybody like Chet does on the morning show. But if Danny D, she is one of our moderators out there. She's going to make sure she welcomes everybody in. And, of course, we welcome you all in, too.
Yep.
And if you have a comment or a question about the Netflix documentary of the train wreck poop cruise, is what they called it, put your comments in the chat. So Chet gave you a rundown of what it was, right? So this is my thing. They had... they selected people for the documentary, and we won't talk much about them. We're just going to tell you who they were, okay? So there was 3 ladies. They were on a bachelorette trip, right? They were on a bachelorette trip, and then there was a father and his daughter.
Yep.
They were another group passengers that they interviewed, and then the other one was a young man.
Yeah.
That was there on a family cruise, I think it was, wasn't it?
His bride-to-be and father-in-law.
Right. So he was there with his bride-to-be's family. And then they had one of the ships. And I think the
cruise director and a bartender.
I started to say, I think the blonde lady was a bartender. And the cruise director. That was all the people that they put in the documentary. Which I thought, wow, how many people were on that ship?
Well, with passengers and crew, it was like 3,000 people.
Out of 3,000 people, you could only find, let's see, a dad and his daughter, and the 3 girls, and the one guy, and the chef, and the bartender, and the cruise director. You only got 9 people in this whole documentary of this poop cruise?
Yeah, I think I'd done a whole lot broader segment of people.
Yeah. So why don't you go ahead and go back to telling us about the poop cruise without our opinion in there.
Okay, yeah. So what happened is they had a fire in the engine room. It burnt the power cables from the generators to the rest of the ship. If it had just been one generator had burnt, no big deal. They fire up the other generators. But when the main power cables burnt, there's no power to anything. So all they had was emergency backup lighting on the ship, which doesn't power anything else.
No. And so what was funny, I don't say funny, but the thing was that they had the fire first, right? And it was like, okay, they got the fire put out, and people were saying they could see the flames shooting from the tail. And then everything was fine, right? They thought everything was just fine. And then an hour or 2 later, was when the power went out.
Boo.
And that's when they found out that all of the cables had been burnt in the fire. So now let's think about, okay, in Florida, every year we go without electricity, right? Because we have hurricanes coming, but we prepare for the hurricanes. So not having power, you don't have anything. So, people were saying, I couldn't believe they just fed people sandwiches when it really happened. But think about it. You can't cook anything, right? Because there's no electricity. Even making toast, is on electricity. And then had throughout all the perishable food. Yeah. The perishable food it's not any good. It's got to be thrown out. Is my shirt on the wrong side out?
I think it is.
My shirt is on the wrong side out.
Nobody would have known if you hadn't told them.
Okay, so go on, Chet.
I want to thank everybody for coming in for Carnival Cruise Addicts.
Yes.
Thank you all for jumping in here. We appreciate you guys so much. We talked about the old poop cruise tonight. If you got a question or comment, type in there big bold letters, question or comment, and throw it in there, and we'll read that. Other than that, we're going to fly through here because there's so many hays and highs and hellos and all that.
Yeah.
And So anyway, so the toilets didn't work. That's the big thing, and that was what the people really, the whole poop cruise centered around, was the toilets not working.
Right.
Now, they did have a temporary solution for this. You could, number one, in the shower. No problem. It goes down the drain. You should be okay. You don't need to flush it. There you go. Number two, they come around with the red hazard bags.
Right.
How do you use those things? How do you use them?
So, okay, this is my thing. I've never been, let's just make our disclosure, okay? We've never been on a cruise where this has happened to us, okay? We've been in hospital many times, okay? We've been camping many times. Mm-hmm. We've been at bike events in pastures many times, right? So this is my thing. If someone gave me a red bag and said, okay, Robin, you've got to do number one in the shower and number two in the red bag, and you're supposed to deposit your red bag at the bend at the end of the hall, right? So number two in the shower. Let's talk about number two in the shower. Okay, so number two in the shower.
Number one in the shower.
Number one in the shower. Number one in the shower. Most showers, right, have ledge because we have a hard time in a non-handicapped room because you got to get over that ledge, right? So these girls were saying that they had to go number one in the shower and then she had to rinse off. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I have weed at a bike event over things and all that. So why did you not stand out, put your feet outside the shower and hover your hiney over the shower? Let me tell you what, women, we know how to hover. Women know how to hover. I mean, let's just say that, right? And then the red bag. Okay, if I was given a red bag, this is what I would do. I would lift up the toilet seat.
That's what you're supposed to do.
I would put the red bag, I would open up the red bag. I'd put the red bag in the toilet and I'd put down the toilet seat. I would sit on the toilet. Mm-hmm. I would use the red bag. Mm-hmm. And then the red bag has a tie or whatever it is that you tie it up with, right? People were saying that they were going in buckets. Why would you be going in a bucket?
And where did you get a bucket?
I think that they were doing, what I think when they said a bucket, I think they were doing the trash cans.
Or the ice bucket.
Oh my God. No, don't say the ice bucket, Chet.
I'll never use the ice bucket again. And neither will you now. Why did the directions I'm sure came with it, or you could ask somebody. You put it in the toilet, guys. Put the lid down, you use it. Then you take it out, you tie it up, walk outside, go down to a metal bin and throw it in there. It's not hard. It's not rocket science.
No.
It's not asking too much to keep sanitation, do what you got to do.
Right.
Okay. I don't get it.
I don't get it.
And all the people in the documentary are like, I'm not doing it.
I'm not doing it.
What are you going to do? That's what I'd ask them. Well, if you're not going to use the red bag like you're supposed to, what are you going to do?
So the one guy used the red bag and then threw it overboard and it landed on somebody's lap on deck. So that was his solution?
Yeah, throw it out, and the wind is going to blow it back down on somebody else's balcony who happened to be sitting out on their deck chair, and it splatters on them. That's wonderful.
Did you have anything else before we get into our personal comments that you had that written down there?
Well, I had the fact that people ignored the muster drill because they were busy drinking.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how common sense isn't common.
I know, right, Linda? Yeah.
Yes, and some people are just nasty. Okay.
Yeah, right, Lori?
You know, and this is the thing, right? So there's no anything on the ship. There's no electricity. And they were using, the one girl said that somebody told her to use the life jacket light, right? To put soda over the life jacket light so it would be a beacon. Now
there's emergency lighting was on the ship, okay? The emergency lighting was on the ship.
Now granted, it had to have been dark, okay, because emergency lighting is not that bright, let's just face it. But this is my thing. Okay, when she said you need to go safety in numbers, right? You need to go in pairs. I agree with that. Nobody needed to be wandering around that ship alone, because they were saying that this is my space. This is for my people. You can't come here, you know. And then they had the open bar, right? So they decided, let's just open up the bar. And even Jen, the cruise director, her first thing was, this is not a good idea.
Not a good idea.
Not a good idea.
Yeah, so, and it's funny is they were trying to pass out sandwiches and food and stuff, and people were going up there and hoarding it.
Right.
Going up there and grabbing 10 sandwiches or 10 apples and whatever they could get and running off with it.
So
why?
And safety, right, Tiffany, safety should come first,
yes,
right?
Tiffany, yes.
And this was the thing. They chose these three ladies who were, all they talked about during the whole documentary was drinking. Now, granted, it was a bachelorette cruise. I get it. Bachelorette cruise, you're going to drink a lot. I totally get it. But you're disappointed that there's no electricity and no food, but you want the bar open. What? Let's see. What is this comment here?
Law says, hey, I pick up after a dog every day. Get over it and take care of it.
I know,
yes,
right?
Law, exactly. We do too. I got 2 dogs,
you know,
and I pick it up out of my own yard and take care of it.
And what's common sense anymore? So
it's not that common, is it, JJ? I know.
I could not believe they were saying, I'm not doing that. I'm not using a red bag. And then the guy, this is what he did. Okay, now here's one comment.
Okay, yeah, Carnival Cruisac say, I mean, the bar would have made pooping in red bag a lot better. Lori says, people hoard on a cruise, even if it isn't a poop cruise.
Yes.
You ever been to the buffet? Right, Lori, they're going to pile that plate up this much.
Yes. So this is my thing, right? So there's no electricity on the ship, okay? There is, think about this, okay? There's no electricity on the ship, but you want to drink. So you've already got, anxiety is high. Some people are already a little afraid, a little anxious. And people were, so they opened up the bar, and what happened was fights broke out. Imagine that. There's no electricity. It's hot. The food's not the same food that you've been having for the past 3 days. And you don't think fights are going to break out?
Somebody pooped in my bag already. I mean, you know, what else can we be fighting over? JJ says, before we fix AI, we need to fix stupid.
There you go. Yep.
Red bag. What's it for, Carnival Cruise Addict?
So the red bag, you know, and that they just kept talking about how I'm not using a red bag. I'm not using a red bag. And the guy, now think about this. There's no electricity on the ship, right? So your door doesn't lock. Your door doesn't lock because you have to be inside the cabin to lock your door. You can't lock your door from the outside.
Right.
So nobody's cabin doors are locked. So this guy even says on the documentary, he goes down the hall, opening doors, trying to find a toilet that works because he's not using a red bag. Now think about that. What if you
poop in somebody else's toilet? Leave them a surprise.
Well, I was going a little bit further than that. You're in your cabin, and somebody just opens the door and walks in. You don't even know who they are.
They're walking in, but they probably ain't walking out of some of these cabins.
So I'm like, I'm sorry, but the nerve of that guy.
Yeah. That
he wasn't using a red bag, so he was going to walk down the hallway and find a room that was vacant, that it had a toilet. Seriously?
Why would you think their toilet's working if your toilet ain't working?
Well, he did find toilets that did work. You know why? You know why those toilets worked? Because the people in those rooms used the red bag the way the red bag was intended. And yeah, so I'm like, I don't know. I
don't see how any of the toilets could work. They said they found one toilet that worked. I don't believe them. I think they just used it anyway.
I think they used it anyway.
Yeah.
I don't think that the toilet flushed because you have to have electricity to flush the toilet.
And if there's no electricity,
none of
them is going to flush.
None of them was going to flush. Yeah. There was no way to flush. That's exactly right.
Right.
And the poop bandit.
The poop bandit.
Know, right? So
he's going to sneak in with his red bag and leave
no,
you a
he's
surprise.
not using the red bag. He says he's not using the red bag. And then, so,
thank you for that, Chris and Liz.
Right? Super duper pooper scooper, right? So my thing was they were more upset about having to use a red bag, saying, no way, I'm not using a red bag. No way, that's not happening.
I don't understand that train of thought.
I don't either.
Why would you not? Because you put it on the toilet. It's just the same as using the toilet. The only difference is there's a bag in the toilet. That's the only difference, y'all.
And then the people that just left the red bags in the hallway.
Yeah, just tossed them out there.
Yeah.
What?
Okay,
at least they used the red bag. I'll give them 5 points out of 100 for at least using the red bag.
So now here's a question.
Do they have backup generators on the ship? Yes.
But however, the problem was, go ahead.
The cable's burned out. The main power, they got one main power cable. That was a design flaw. And check it out. This is how they discovered this. What Carnival called it? They called it a design vulnerability. I'm using their words here. Carnival called it a design vulnerability. So they spent $500 million to fix them on all their ships, so that this wouldn't happen
after
again.
this happened, right? Yeah. And go ahead and talk about the clause.
What about the clause?
The clause they had that in the contract that you sign when you go on a cruise.
Carnival did have one doozy of a contract there that nobody ever read. Think about that: millions of cruise passengers. Nobody ever read this contract where it said, "Hey, we don't guarantee that the ship is going to be safe. We don't guarantee that you're going to have safe, decent food to eat. We don't guarantee anything."
No.
I'm like, wow. So if this happens, they have that in writing so that you can't sue them. Right. You can't go to court and say, well, we're supposed to have safe passage. Not according to this. Did you read it? You're supposed to read it. Well, we didn't have food. Doesn't matter. Right here.
I can't believe it said they didn't guarantee safe passage.
Yeah. Or even that the ship was even safe.
Right. Is that in the contract nowadays?
No. All that was taken out.
Okay.
Because of this.
So here we go.
Lori says, could be worse, people hoarding and stealing the red bags. Before or after they're
So this is what Chet said to me. How could they have that many red bags on board? So I told him, I said,
thousands of them.
It's probably, like anybody that knows anything about medical supplies, the red bags, they have them on ships, mostly for diapers, right? So if you, like I traveled with my daughter when my granddaughter was little and she was wearing diapers, and they gave you red bags to put the diapers in. So a case could have 5,000 bags in it, right? Because one box could easily have 5,000 bags.
Wait a minute. Now, you can handle a baby diaper and put it in a red bag, but you can't put it in the toilet and poop in it. See the logic in that? People handle. Come on. You can put the bag in the toilet and use the toilet.
So Chet says, how'd they have that many red bags? But you remember what was the ship that came to their aid? The Legend?
Yeah, I think it was the Legend.
The Legend came to their aid, right? And I'm sure that they gave them their red bags that they had as well. So there was not a shortage of red bags. It's just that people wouldn't use them.
Yeah, I mean, how many times do you poop a day? I mean...
And then the one lady says, I'm just taking Imodium. And Chet says, why is she doing that?
I didn't know what that was. She had to explain to me. It constipates you.
Right. So she wanted to be constipated so she didn't have to poop.
Adventures with Uncle Dave's here. He says, as a former military, I can sleep anywhere and poop anywhere. Chet, you know this. Yes, I do, Uncle Dave. I've pooped out in the woods in Camp Lejeune, out in 29 Palms, and I've pooped in a lot of places. Nothing.
It's just back to nasty people. So Chet had, when we were watching the movie, Chet came out of his mouth, it's the Lord of the Flies.
Lord of the Flies. It only took one day.
It didn't even take a whole day. It was less than a whole day.
They were hoarding food, hoarding the lounge chairs up on deck. Look, what do we got there?
Let me get down here to it.
Oh.
I'll get down here to it.
Okay, she's getting right to it. I need my double squeakies for this. All right, guys, I've got to break out the double squeakies here for a second because we've got the super chat from Carnival Cruise Acts, Chris and Liz. Red bags cost 2,000 points. Here's some help toward that. We are 2,000 points on our way to our first red bag, and make sure we give a super thanks right there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yes, and so it is. It's back to nasty people.
Yeah.
It just really is. And this is the sad thing. Netflix could have the opportunity. There was an opportunity here to show humanity.
Yep, they missed a big opportunity here to show the other side of the coin. What about the stories, what the crew had to go through, and how yet they were still able to come out with a smile on their face,
right,
and make the best out of the situation that they could to try to help uplift these passengers.
And we're going to come back to some of those real stories because we follow Jamie D. So Jamie D, she was the cruise director that we just loved the most, right? And all time. And I still follow her on Facebook. And we have taken some of the comments from passengers that were really on that ship.
Yes.
Here we go.
Controversial cruising. Scott, let me cover the other 2,000 stars for Liz. Double squeakies right there for Scott. You know Scott right now is on the MSC World America.
Oh, is he really?
He's out cruising on a ship, Scott.
Here we go.
So
Don't
much.
stop.
Oh, Lori Barber, double squeakies for Lori. $2 right there. Here's some real live poop bag and stars. It's got lie in it. I like that. Thanks for that, you guys. We appreciate it. Now we got our red bags covered.
There you go. We got our red bags.
We're going to use them on the ABC cruise next year in April, so make sure you get on that.
Mm-hmm. So here's where we left in the comments.
They have a lot more generators on the ships now.
They do. So Carnival did learn a lot from this situation. It was a bad situation. I'm not making light of the situation.
No.
If we were on that ship, we would not have been happy either. Just saying, right? But the thing is, you have to make the best of a bad situation. And
I'd have been like, hey, we're making history here. This is going to be all over the press. Hopefully somebody will interview us. Maybe we can get on, Johnny Carson or somebody will interview us and we can make a buck. But we're going to tell the upside of the story. We're going to show the good things that happen because, it's not all doom and gloom. There are some uplifting people out there who will try to keep things in a positive note no matter what. And you're looking at some of them right here at Sea Lake Journeys. Carnival Cruise Addict say, Lori, I love you, but ain't stealing your poop-filled bag.
Here we go.
JJ says, Tiffany, we're going on our first cruise, so I was wondering, this is very unlikely to happen to you, JJ. Very
unlikely to happen.
Because they have spent a ton of money to make sure this don't happen again. It's all because they had 5 or 6 generators on this ship, but with that one main cable burnt. Imagine that if your house had one big fuse and that one big fuse blew out. It wouldn't matter what power you had coming to it. You can't light the house up. No. Same thing with the ship. Scott says, little fun fact, if anyone didn't know, the Poop Cruise documentary was shot about a year ago. People were paid on their cruise by Carnival to take fake videos, and Carnival repurposed. How about that? Some of the venues they show are only on the new Sunrise, not the old one. Yeah, where they're getting interviewed, they're sitting on the Sunrise, which was the Triumph.
Right.
But it's many years
removed.
They took it
off. Right. They took it off the ocean and refurbished it and brought it back.
And we were on the Sunrise.
Right. We've been on that ship.
You would never know if anything ever happened. Scott says also, but it was shot in 2024 and Carnival made it like it was from back then.
Right.
Right. There were no cells like we have now. There were cameras, but not high-tech cell phones like we have now. Exactly.
And the other thing was people couldn't get cell service, right? So when the Legend pulled up, they were trying to steal cell service from the Legend. And I was like, okay, I could not believe that the guy from Carnival was saying, well, you only need to give the news what you want them to report until those people got cell phone service. And then they started calling people. And then the cat was out of the bag. And Carnival had to step up and make a proper announcement.
Well, I'm sure I was hoping by the time that they reported that it was like the cruise director originally thought. There's 5 or 6 generators on the ship. It's no big deal if one of them burns up. We just fire up one of the other ones.
Yep.
And if that burns up, we'll just fire up one of the other ones. But they didn't know at the time until the engineers got in there and found out this huge power cable was toast and there's no way to repair it out there. So I just want everyone to understand it was dramatized by Carnival.
Yes.
And they even say it on a website.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and here's one more.
Law. In the case of an emergency, your red bag can be used as a flotation device. Just wrap your lips around it and blow.
So, and this is the other thing, right? The ship. So once they came with the tugboat, to push the ship. The tugboat pushed the ship, and then the poop became everywhere. That's when the decks were flooded. The decks did not flood until the tugboat pushed the ship, and it,
the ship listed
the ship
a little bit, and
right.
Yeah, it just only took 1 degree, and there you go, make a big old mess right there.
and one thing that they do not say, and we follow Jamie D, and these are real reports from real people that was on that cruise ship, right?
Yes.
The crew cabins were flooded. Mm-hmm. The crews could not get to their own cabins because remember, they're on the lowest deck possible.
Yeah, they're down deck 0.
So when water runs, it's going to run down. Even though you're on deck 8 and you're getting water, deck 1 has got more water, okay?
Yeah.
And they actually had crew members sleeping on dining room tables and waking up to serve passengers meals. You didn't hear that in the documentary.
No.
You didn't hear the great humanitarian stories that were on that ship. All you heard was 3 women that were upset that they didn't have enough alcohol.
Yeah.
A man and his daughter whose reconnection cruise was not the reconnection cruise they wanted.
Oh, and by the way, they're still cruising.
And but they say not on Carnival.
Yeah.
And a guy that was more concerned about his father-in-law than his family. And then the bartender girl, all she talked about was having sex. I would be appalled if I was Carnival and my representative is sitting there talking about, oh, there's just tons and tons of sex everywhere. Sex. Really?
That's one of the
I know.
Let's
correct that statement. There are a lot of family people that are crew members, that are husbands and wives and wives-to-be and husbands-to-be that don't do that.
Right.
That was a very poor representation of the crew.
I thought so, too.
And I'm sorry, but it was a poor representation of the passengers.
I think so, too.
I mean, think of all of us that we know that are passengers. Did the 3 girls represent you?
They surely did not represent me.
Did the man and his daughter represent you?
No way.
Did the guy and his father-in-law represent you?
I don't think so.
So
there's nobody there representing.
There was nobody there representing typical.
And if you've watched
cruisers.
it, which of those people would have represented you, or none of the above?
No.
So then you have to question, well, how come there was nobody like us on that ship? There was thousands of people like us on that ship, but that's not newsworthy.
No.
The news don't want to hear, oh, it wasn't that bad. We just used this bag. We ate a sandwich. It wasn't that bad. They don't want to hear that. That's not news.
And Danny D.
Danny Dizzle, 14 months member. How about that, Danny D? And only 27 days till we're going to meet her. How about that?
How about that?
Law says, I would rather use the red bag system than an adult diaper. You got that right, Law. Me too, brother. Me too.
There we go.
Yeah, or a bucket. I'd poop on your poop if it was a poop cruise, Liz. Layers of food.
I don't know what this comment was for.
Don't bank on it. If it happens, it'll happen to us. I told JJ it's very, very, very unlikely for this to happen. No, JJ. No, JJ, watch this. You're going to get the double squeakies right now. These are highly coveted double squeakies. They don't just get handed out. Those will empower you to have the best cruise you've ever had, ever. You wait. You'll see. You'll come back and you'll say, Select Journeys, you were right. The double squeaky power did it. Jeff Brack is here. Hey, thanks for joining us, Jeff. One thing I never heard mentioned on the documentary was spam. When the first came out, all they talked about was eating spam. You're right.
Right.
They did not mention spam one time.
No, but they did mention soggy sandwiches that were lettuce and tomato. Well, this is the thing. You had to throw out all of the food. All of the food was spoiled. So
but spam's in a can.
I know. They use the perishable, they use the fruits and vegetables up first, right? And then the legend also brought them supplies. Yeah. Now, if you watch that documentary and you watch how rough the seas were, because people said, why didn't they ever get those people off that ship? They had lifeboats. It was too dangerous. If you've ever been on a tender, that's a lifeboat, that's the tender, and they pull up to the ship, you're not in open sea.
Right.
Right? You're off the shore. Think about doing that out in the open ocean, how dangerous that would be.
And they showed just a tiny clip of one little boat smacking into the other boat and smacking it into the side of the ship. Mm-hmm. And then we were reading some of the comments from people who were really there. from both ships.
Right.
And they says that the people who were taking the chance and bringing the food over over to the Triumph from the whatever that other ship was,
the Legend,
that everybody was cheering them like it was the Super Bowl.
Right.
That was their words, not mine. They were cheering like it was the Super Bowl. Both ships, yeah, because they knew what was going on down there, how rough it was, how difficult it was, and they were still getting it done.
Yeah, they were still getting.
I love it. I love the American spirit. Yeah.
And that's what they did not show. They did not show in that documentary the American spirit, the spirit of the American people, how we will come together. You didn't see, here we got a couple more comments.
Oh, Lori says, did they show any of the people that were interviewed getting off the ship praising the crew?
No, not one person.
I mentioned that Friday, Lori. I talked about that because I remember when this happened and there were guys being interviewed by other stations saying, hey, they're stopping people, but if you tell them it wasn't that bad, they just tell you keep on going.
Right.
They're waiting for somebody to come along and tell them how horrible it was. Then they're like, okay, come with us. We want to interview you.
And the lady from CNN, she said it without exactly saying it. Mm-hmm. CNN just wanted to, there was a new guy in charge of CNN, right, and he wanted to make a name for himself with this great story that was coming out. And like she said, we got the Pope retiring. That's not important. We've got all this world news. That's not important. Poop. That's what's important. But that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to make a name for himself. Mm-hmm. He did not care about reporting a lot of the truth that happened. He cared about the drama.
Yes.
The drama was going to make him a name for himself out in the news world.
Yep. There you go. Mm-hmm. There you go. Danny says that must have been a crappy situation with the poop bags.
You know it.
Grandma's house here. I agree. They made it sound like everyone was just having sex. Talked about the newlyweds having sex next to people on the deck. That's right, Grandma. I forgot about that story. And right there on the deck on the folding chairs.
And I wonder how much of that was an exaggeration.
Don't know.
Right? Because let's some people, maybe that was the day they opened up the bar and they were drunk, right? Mm-hmm. Because it was free. And, it was a poor representation of people, right? And here's a comment.
Uncle Dave says the crews of both ships were the real heroes.
Yes.
There you go, Uncle Dave, right there. That's the story I would have been, if you're going to talk about some of the bad, you need to throw the good positive out there.
Right.
Why not talk about the heroes of the crew, the actions that they did and they performed, despite what they were going through themselves.
Drama gets the ratings.
I think heroism should get ratings.
I do too. And you know what? Another comment from a real passenger that was on that ship. You don't hear that the acoustic band played out by, out on the deck.
Lifeboat 13 or whatever that is.
To entertain the people. Yeah. You don't talk about the crew members that sat in the floor, in the hallway, making towel animals with the kids, trying to keep the kids calm and, less stressed. You don't hear that. You don't hear that at all.
That's real stories right there. People going above, out of their duty station. You know what? I can make towel animals. I'm going to sit here and entertain these kids for an hour making towel animals. But that's a story.
Yeah, that's the story.
Positive story.
And, they really missed the mark. They really did. Because they didn't talk about how the crew did the best they could with not having electricity, but yet nobody missed a meal.
Nobody complained about it.
They never missed a meal.
In fact, they showed going down the hall all the wasted food.
The wasted food.
That to me was almost as gross as not wanting to use a poop bag.
Right.
And what are they using?
So not one person went hungry.
Nope.
Not one person went hungry. Now they didn't like the food that was served. Or they hoarded the food up and then the food spoiled and they couldn't eat it. But you did not hear one person went hungry on that cruise. Not one person. Nope. You heard them, they were upset that the bar wasn't open. Yep. And they were upset that their sex was interrupted by a fire on the ship. Oh, how horrible is that? And how tragic it was to use red bag.
Tragic.
And
horrible. I'm not going to do it.
And the fact that people didn't look out for other people. Now, and the woman said that when her daughter called, she said she was hoped that she didn't die on the ship.
Oh my gosh, what
and
drama.
It's like, okay, I know she's only 12. I know at the time she was only 12.
This would have been a camping trip. If we'd been on there with our kids, we would say, hey, kids, we're going to put a sheet up on the Lido deck. We're going to have a camp out in a tent.
And, people taking their mattress out and putting their mattress out. I get that. Those rooms had to have been hot with no air conditioning. If we had a balcony room, we would have put our mattress on the balcony. Mm-hmm. We would have pretty much stayed in our cabin out on the balcony. But everybody don't have a balcony. So.
And then you ain't safe on your balcony. Somebody throws their poop bag down on you. Lori says CNN never sensationalized anything. It's the fact and the truth only. Mm-hmm. Laugh out loud. Yeah, we're laughing. You go. I know, Lori. Tongue in cheek on that one. Cruising Chris M says, remember the title of the series, Trainwreck Poop Cruise. You're right, Chris. The title tells you exactly what it's going to be. Mm-hmm. We're not going to tell you news. We're not going to tell you positive stories. We're not going to tell you uplifting heroism and great feats of spirit. No, we're going to tell you about a train wreck.
And, I wanted to watch it because I thought they were going to show how great the crew took care of the passengers.
Keisha.
And that's not what happened.
After watching us tonight, you won't have to watch it. We're telling you everything in there.
It was very disappointing.
It's very disappointing, very disgusting. Mm-hmm. I felt bad I just thought it was bad.
Yep.
I kept thinking it's a good time to go on a water fast and get a future-free cruise.
So this is the thing. They got all the money back for the cruise that they did. Mm-hmm. Plus they got a free cruise.
Free cruise, yeah.
Plus they got transportation back home.
Yep.
Wherever they came from. Because the ship ended up in Mobile. And nobody was from Mobile. Everybody came from Galveston. Yeah. So... I think that the cruise ship did right by, doing the best they could for the passengers. Mm-hmm. I was just very disappointed that you didn't hear how people took care of each other. You didn't hear how maybe the elderly people in the cabin next door,
right.
You didn't hear any of that. And that was so disappointing to me because Americans, we are great people, and the people on those cruise ships are great crew. No one, and they didn't talk about nobody being harmed except for in fights.
There was fights.
The fights were the only time people were harmed.
After the bar was opened up.
Yep, and they got $500. That's right, and they got $500.
That's right, $500. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yep.
Oh my God, I can see the new yellow sign saying, watch out for falling poop. If you got a balcony, watch out.
On the balconies. Yep, that's right. And I had a couple more comments here. What were they?
We got all kinds of stuff here. I do want to mention, though, that despite this coming out from Netflix and also the new status reward system, not status system, new reward system that came out, stocks for Carnival have been up the last couple of days, and now it's the highest it's been since before COVID.
Mm-hmm. Oh, here's a good comment.
However, when the head chef said it was like lasagna, poop towels, poop, laugh out loud, I almost lost it. The lasagna. I'd never look at lasagna the same. Never. Scott, you can't disconnect from these chats, can you, my friend? I know Scott is hooked on the chats, the live chats. He's on MSC World America right now and hanging out with Sea Lake Journey. Scott, you are awesome, brother.
And some of the things that the chef said, I'm like, I would have been, if I was Carnival, I would have been mortified. Except for Jen, the cruise director.
Oh yeah.
Everything that she said in the documentary. You expected to hear from a cruise director, right? She did the best she could. She did not agree with opening the bar. She, tried to keep passengers calm. Everything that she said was a great representation of Carnival. The chef and the bartender, if I was Carnival, I'm sorry, I would have said, you guys are fired. If that's what you think we are, and you work for this organization, and that's your representation of this organization, we don't need you. I'm sorry, that's what I would have done.
The only reason I would have been allowed is if Carnival made some coin on it. That's the only thing I can figure.
I don't know how Carnival could have made coin on it.
Well, they probably had non-disclosure agreements with people, and then the Netflix could have called Carnival and said, hey, we want to talk to these people. We'll give you $5 million if you let us interview them. And then be like, oh, yeah, we'll sign on for that. Scott, bet that chef isn't employed by Carnival anymore.
I wouldn't keep him. I would have fired him. I would have fired the bartender too, sorry. Because I would have said to her, if you've come on a cruise ship just to have sex, we don't need you. Sorry, you can stay home and have all the sex you want.
Yeah, we frown on that, telling everybody about that. Dan says, Keisha, no, he can't. He said to me this morning, I was on Ma duty tonight. duty. Uncle Dave says, and nobody talks about how the crew wasn't specifically trained for this,
Right.
but they did the absolute best with what they had. That's right. There was no training for this kind of thing.
And the thing is, the crew were going through it too. The crew still had to use the red bags. The crew had to do number one. And come on, the crew, they had the exact same experience. They had to eat the same food that the passengers were eating. They had to use the red bags just like the passengers were doing. Their evening meals were not like they normally do. Their normal time off was not the same. They're sleeping on floors and on top of dining room tables. Come on.
I'm thinking some of those guys, that was their first contract and they never even stepped foot on a ship before in their life. And here they are, first week into their first contract. And they're like,
I know, right?
And I got to be on this for 9 more months. I'm in trouble.
I would have liked to have known what Carnival did to compensate those crew.
I would like to know what
I would like to know what Carnival did for those crew members.
To me, that's a story.
That's a story.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to know.
Here we go.
Traveling fools, not going to lie, as long as the bar stayed open, I'd float around with no power, pooping in a bag for $500 and a free cruise. A little excitement does the body good. I am too. If they're going to do all that, this cruise is free, another cruise is free. All I got to do is poop in a bag. You're going to give me $500 too? I'm in.
So how many days? How many days was it really the poop? 2?
5.
It's 5 days of poop?
5 days of poop.
So their 4-day cruise ended up being 8 days? 9 days.
3 and 5, 8. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because the first 3 days were perfect. Day 4 is when it went, and then 5 days later they got back.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. The director was the only one I thought sounded professional.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. You know what was funny about that too? I don't know if anybody noticed this, but I thought the captain would be telling all that stuff.
I know.
To me, if the cruise director is talking over a speaker and it's not the captain, it's not that big of an emergency.
Why was
if it's a big emergency, the captain's talking.
Yes, and the other thing was those girls when the sirens started going off with the fire, right? They're going, would somebody just turn that off?
What are we supposed to do? We didn't go to the muster drill. We don't know where to go.
I mean, come on, you've got some responsibility for yourself, and it's not to be drunk, and it's not to be talking about how you're missing, drinking. Really? First of all, I don't know. I just don't even know. Here we go.
I agree. I read that one. Yeah. As long as they had a balcony room, we'd probably be okay. And as long as nobody throws a red bag and it comes down and lands on you on your balcony. Remember that. People are throwing bags and they're landing on people's balconies.
And men were weeing off the edge of the ship.
Yeah.
And what we all know, wind carries it. It's got to carry it somewhere. Guess where it's going to carry it to? Out to the sides of the ship.
A lot of golden showering going on. It wasn't intentional. I'm pretty sure.
I just don't even know.
Yep. Or in the public spaces with communication handicap. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yep. I mean, this is crazy. And the crew rooms were worse than any customer room in the bottom of the ship.
Yes.
They had it way worse.
Mm-hmm. Their rooms, they couldn't even get in their rooms. It was so flooded. And I know that people were walking down the hallway in, sloshy. And I know that it's urine and I know what it is. But the crew, their rooms were totally flooded. Everything's got to go down. It's not going to, like I said, it's running down the walls. It's running down the walls to the bottom deck.
Yeah, the stuff from deck 18's going down there, 17, 16, 15, 14. So it's all accumulative going down there. So if you got this much on every deck and you got 12 or 15 decks, you got all this down there in their cabin. Keisha says, traveling fools, I'm going to limit the drinking and eating to avoid the red bag.
There you go.
My squat aim is not good.
and the thing is that, you know what, now this is my impression of Netflix now. I love documentaries. I love the history behind documentaries. How many of Netflix documentaries are one-sided like this was?
I know. Now I look at any other documentary that they've done. I think, did they only show us the bad side over here and not the rest of the story?
Exactly. So now, because I do watch a lot of Netflix and I do watch a lot of documentaries on Netflix. Now it makes me sit back and say, is this really the true story of this documentary, or is Netflix just wanting the ratings out of the drama?
Yeah, because if you only showed the bad things that happened out of World War II, you'd never think we won the war.
Oh, I know it.
You never think we won the war.
Exactly. And so the thing is that cruising, that poop cruise, I would like to know how many people that were on that cruise, whether they be passengers or whether they be crew members, that are still on cruise ships today. And you know what? You can't say, well, I'm cruising, but I'm just not cruising on Carnival anymore. Because you know what? You're still cruising. Yeah. You're still in that same environment that a fire could happen. The electricity could go out. You could be stranded at sea. All of that. Period.
Unless you're with Sea Lake Journeys, then you'll be okay. As content creators, we all know that negative and sometimes exaggerated sells. And, we just can't do that.
We can't. That's not us.
I just can't do that.
I can't do that.
That's why I'll never have a gigantic channel, I guess, because I can't throw up there, what do they call that? Snake bite? When you throw it out
snake
there?
oil?
No.
Clickbait.
Clickbait
Yeah,
stuff.
I hate clickbait. Oh. And you know what? That's what Netflix did.
They threw a bad clickbait.
They do. Yeah, they did. They really, really did. Yep.
Yeah.
Here, what is this?
Like when Bill rants and gets all heated up. Bill is awesome, y'all.
Here we go.
I love Bill. I do find it funny, this documentary, Drop Days from the new rewards program. Coincident? Yeah. The timing.
Isn't the timing, you think that's coincidental?
And it's odd because the stocks went up. It went up both times. The stock is now like, it's went up like $10 since all these things came out. It's crazy. Documentaries are like statistics. All depends on who is shaping them.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's why the reporters stand down on the edge of the dock. What was your experience? It was good. Oh, we don't want you. What was your experience like? Not that bad. Nope, we don't want you. It was horrific. Come here. We want your story. And they make that the representation of everybody. Instead of, it's not even a majority.
Right.
It may only be 50 people out of 3,000 had this horrific experience. Everybody else is like, it was okay. It wasn't that bad. But those are people that are going to center the story around.
Yep.
And Grandma's House says it's all for drama. It's shock value. That's why I listen to creators like y'all for the truth. That's what, we want to tell both sides,
Right.
We're going to say, hey, there was a fire, a cable burnt out, and, and then the toilets didn't flush. But you know what? They made provisions for it with this and this and this and this. And it all worked out. Everybody got home okay. Nobody was harmed except for the people who got drunk and were fighting. But that's on every Carnival cruise anyway. So, nobody's hurt, injured. Nobody died. Nobody got sick. Nobody got any kind of disease or anything on that ship. You think if you're going to catch, what is salmonellas or something like this?
Right. What's that? What's that sickness you get from changing baby diapers? I'll think of it.
There's all kinds of diseases and stuff you would think if it's that horrific, somebody's going to have that when they get back. I never heard of anybody having it.
It's not.
Never heard of it. Cholera?
No.
Dysentery? Athlete's foot?
But that's the thing. Granted, it was an unsanitary environment, right? But nowhere did they say how the crew tried to keep the areas where people ate food as clean as possible without running water.
E. coli.
Yeah, nobody got E. coli.
Yeah.
You didn't hear 1,000 people got E. coli.
And I can't believe that nobody got any kind of sickness.
Yeah.
So that, to me, it doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. Jeff Brack says 4 out of 5 recommend after we interviewed 1,000 people.
we chose our 5.
That's
right.
Exactly.
That's exactly right.
What happened.
Yep.
Exactly.
E. coli, Grandma's house.
Oh, there you go, Grandma. Grandma got it. I've been blessed and not seen any fighting on any of my 6 Carnival cruises. Honestly, Keisha, we've been on probably 25 Carnival cruises. We've never seen them fight either.
No.
We've never seen one either. But you know what? We don't hang out after midnight.
We don't hang out with those people either.
We're not out, drinking after 1 a.m. out on Lido Day. So Lori says that's why all the reality shows and some news channels only have on people that have some sort of horrible background story to be on it. Exactly.
Right. And I was so disappointed that the people that they chose, the passengers that they chose for this documentary, was a poor representation of the majority of the passengers on that cruise ship or any cruise ship.
I think, why can't they at least get one passenger on there would tell a story in a more positive light, telling all the crew thing. Hey, my kids, the guys were making tow animals for them, and the band was up here playing acoustic instruments. We had music and stuff still going on. Nobody tells us. We have to read about this from people who go to another cruise director and put it on their Facebook page. Because these are true stories from real people.
Yes, true stories from real people. Crew members in the hallway making tow animals to keep the kids calm. Now,
hey, we're better reporters than CNN.
I know, right?
Agree. Those girls were like sorority sisters. They annoy us. Oh my God!
I'm sorry. I wanted to jump up and slap them and say, "Really, alcohol is all you cared about?"
They're like teenagers.
This could have been a very, very, very bad situation. It could have been horrible. There could have been people injured. There could have been people deathly sick. They could have been sending helicopters to pick people up.
Well, that fire could have spread and sunk that ship.
This could have been a very, very bad situation. But because the crew handled the situation like that and handled it with dignity, respect, and training, it didn't end up as horrible as it could. And all you cared about was that the bar wasn't open. Jeez. And that you had to use a red bag.
Well, they refused to use a red bag. They never admitted to using a red bag either. They said they weren't going to do it. Oh, what? Nobody died from all that? Lost at sea, no food, walking around and sleeping in crap, no sickness, no death. Right? Boring. I know, right, Lori? I dropped my sandwich on the floor, and at 5-second rule, I ate it, and I got E. coli.
And the thing is that, did you read that?
Lori says, I've been on over 40 Carnival cruises and never seen a fight. My hubby saw one at the disco a few years ago when he was passing by it. Yeah. I mean, we've never seen one yet. Yeah. The only thing we've ever seen is the drug sniffing dogs coming around them arresting people.
Yeah, we've seen that.
We've seen arresting people on the ship for drugs. When there's an earthquake, they go to Walmart to not to the library to find out what happened. I know. Let's go down to Walmart, see what happened.
I don't know. If I was Carnival, I just would have been very upset with the whole documentary. And if I was a Carnival employee, I would have been. I'm upset because I'm a passenger of Carnival. I wasn't on that ship. I did not endure that. But I am disappointed that you chose those people to represent us. I can't even say that enough times.
Yeah, I think they just chose poorly, but they chose what they wanted. Uncle Dave says my horror story would be I missed my origami class.
And this is the thing.
I missed bingo. Missed bingo. Uncle Dave.
And this is the thing. There had to have been a lot of really frightened people, right? Elderly people that need their electric scooter to get around the ship, and you can't charge it. There had to have been people that could not leave their room.
I'm thinking refrigerated medications.
Refrigerated medications. Lots of really important things that I'm sure the crew stepped in and said. For example, somebody that had diabetes, right? I'm sure that the crew did the best they could with trying to keep the insulin cold for those people.
Well, those freezers, they can go down there, and that's going to stay cold longer. And their refrigerator is going to stay cold for a day, enough for that medicine, and they move it to the freezer, whatever they got to do. I'm sure they did the best they could, and nobody talked about that either.
Nobody talked about that either.
You can't tell me there wasn't somebody on there that didn't need refrigerated medication or refrigerated something. You know what? It's all fine. We will still cruise and still cruise Carnival. We will too.
Yep.
In fact, we're going to go next April on the ABC cruise. Yep. We ain't scared.
And here's another great point. What about the people with CPAP machines?
There you go. That's another thing.
Even though it's got a battery backup, the battery backup ain't going to last for 5 days. No. And there's no way to charge it,
What about that? That's a good question, right, Uncle Dave. That a lot of people, they must have did something. What did they do? Bingo's grand prize was 25 red bags. Only 3 of them were used. Bingo's grand prize. My horror story would have been, I missed this show with Scott dancing. Oh, Danny. Yeah, that would be a nightmare to miss a show with Scott dancing. Hey, Zach is off to get the nerd herd set up. I lost track of time. I sucked into the show tonight. Yeah, Zach's coming on right behind me at 7 o'clock with the nerd herd, y'all. So we're going to raid right over there, Sea Lake Journey raid. It truly didn't make Carnival look good. Saying these things were issues they knew about and disregarded, and the waiver on the ticket saying they didn't guarantee safe passage. That I thought really, that to me was the one negative thing for Carnival was that contract. When I looked at that contract, I was like, wow, I got to start reading contracts.
Yep.
That's crazy. In 5 days, they couldn't get those people to land.
So the thing was, it took 5 days for the tugboat to push them there, and it was because bad weather set in. And when you push a big ship like that with a little tugboat, they had to push it because there was no steering. No, they had to pull it. They had to pull it because there was no steering. The ship couldn't steer themselves, and because the first tugboat was supposed to come get them, but they drifted 100 miles overnight, and then bad weather came. So
it would have been one day if the tugboats could have got out there and got them, and we took them back to Mexico. But it took them longer to get out there, and it drifted so far that they said, well, we might as well just take them on to Mobile, Alabama.
I mean, imagine a ship that big with no steering capability. No steering capability.
Yeah.
And even with the tugboat pulling them, one tugboat pushing and one tugboat pulling, there's still no steering in that ship. It's up to the tugboat to keep it going in the right direction.
But powerful boats, man.
We want to thank all of you for coming tonight and had such great chat.
Yes, we had a great chat tonight.
We just want everyone to know that documentary was not a true representation of the crew and passengers.
Or of Carnival Cruise Lines.
Or even of Carnival Cruise Lines.
We'll still be on Carnival. We're going next April. And, nothing's going to affect us. We won't be platinum in a couple years. We don't care. We'll be back to red card. We're still going to cruise Carnival. So
and cruise ships have gotten much, much better since then.
I mean, so.
Everything's gotten better. Look at regular cars on the road, cars that were built in 2013 and cars that are built now.
Yep.
You have to look at it that way. You just can't. Well, it's an older ship. It's an older ship that's been upgraded.
Yep. And we've been on it and we loved it. It was a great ship. The Carnival Sunrise. Go take a cruise on it.
Yep.
Aaron says, I would say that anywhere around where a freezer/refrigerator is on a ship would be a good place for a bank of LiPo 4 batteries for just in case.
There you go.
Yeah. Thank you for talking about this. Yes, Grandma, thanks for coming in and joining the conversation with us.
Yep. So we appreciate each and every one of you, and we're heading over to
the Nerd Herd
on
Coker Culture with Zach and Robin from Sea Lake Journeys will probably leave at this point, but that's okay.
Because my veteran, my shirt I sat out.
Yeah. Sensei Rabbit, 2nd degree black belt, will join me.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us. We really do appreciate you. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for the memberships. Thank you for the participation in the chat.
Yes.
And thank you for following our channel.
Yes. Thank you.
Until next time, we'll see you around the channel.
See you around the channel.